Hey guys, Chriselle here, and I have a new microphone and I don't know how this is going to sound, so let's call this a test and see how it goes. Today I wanted to talk about my current work in progress, what's going on with my writing, what's happening now, and sort of just an accountability check-in for myself to keep me motivated. So if you're new to my channel, I am a writer. I have been writing for a number of years now, and I am currently in the query process for what I consider my main work in progress. And because that is going to be a process, I am currently working on other projects to keep me going, because that's what you do when you're an aspiring writer. You just kind of keep going. So at the moment, I am working on a project that I had originally drafted in 2016. And in my mind, I considered it one of the best drafted works that I had completed so far. I think because at the time I had felt much more solid in my process and my plotting strategies. And so I'll get into that in a moment. But for now, I am currently querying the main work in progress, Crown of Ice, which is the working title. And I am going to continue moving forward with that. I haven't heard anything from my latest round. I expect more rejections because that's just how it goes, but I am always cautiously optimistic that something will come of it. So I'm just going to keep on pressing on with that one, but I am also not setting all my hopes on that one project, because you shouldn't set all your hopes on one project. It's just realistic to have more works and to keep writing and to perfect your craft and become a better writer and a more well-rounded, storyteller, drafter, etc. So my goal is to go back and work on some of the projects that I had set aside while working on this project. A couple of works that I had drafted and were since waiting sort of like in the backstage for me to get to them. And this is a project that I felt really good about, really attached to, and wanted to revisit. So I have done this now. I have started that process. So I have the draft printed out. This is the second major sort of like to one day hopefully be published work that I am diving into. And I have it at a little bit over 60,000 words. So with my most recent drafting project, I found that I had a very intricately plotted story. And by the time I got to the end of the draft, I felt short. I felt that the story itself had been a little short. And as I went back, I printed out this draft that I am working on now, because I do like to do the first read through on paper. As I went through it, I found that the same thing happened this time. This was a very intricately down to the scene plotted novel, more so than the current project that I worked on. That one was kind of an in-between. But while some of I considered plotsered works, where I kind of like plotted slashed pantsed a little bit, tend to run long and then need a lot of cutting, or sometimes have scenes that are in the wrong place and need to be moved. Because I went so into detail in this one, I find that the scenes themselves are good. I went through and I did the read through, and I don't have any notes about moving scenes. I feel like I hit the beats where they should go, but I'm lacking a lot of setting, detail, backstory, some extra like dialogue bits where like there are people who are talking and you've got moving head syndrome, or talking head syndrome, I think it's called, where there's no like physicality involved in the dialogue, it's just the words. So I need to go back and add that. So as I go through this process, I'm going to be firstly doing a thing that is basically going to rewrite the whole thing, because I decided to switch it to first person point of view. My most recent project was in first person point of view, and it was actually my first time choosing first person. And as I was reading this one, because these two works kind of live in the same world, they're not sequels, they're not connected, but they kind of like exist in the same universe. I feel like a first person narrative would work a lot better for this story, and I wrote it in third person. So we're gonna have to rewrite all that stuff. And that will be round one. And as I'm going through, I'll just start to add the details. So exactly as I said, I'm going to need to layer in setting details, story, dialogue, elements, adding in some more characterization, development of the scenes, and just like bringing it and fleshing it out. Because right now, I think it's well plotted. the order of events makes sense, but there's not enough to give it real power. So that's what I need to focus on with this draft. And because I am a very slow editor, I am fairly, I guess, I don't know, maybe not that fast, but like I'm not the slowest or the fastest drafter. I can usually do a novel in like a month or two or so, but it takes me a very long time to actually go through a draft and edit. So this is going to be a process. I am taking this through as my quarterly project. So I am not going to be printing out the entire copy of the HB90 plan for this particular project, because I feel like the HB90 was more, in the way that I was using it, more suited to drafting a novel and sort of like tracking that progress. I'm sort of adapting that method into just my traveler's notebook, which I have here. So I'm going to adapt my quarterly goals into the traveler's notebook, and I purchased a happy planner that I'll be doing a review of at the end of the month once I start to like use it for this purpose. But I'm ideally hoping to use it in order to track the amount of time that I spend on this novel and the number of pages that I work on and stuff like that. It's a little different for me tracking when I am editing as opposed to drafting, because words edited is really hard to track. I will sometimes cut things, I will sometimes add things, so it's kind of like balancing itself out. So if I cut 500 words but add 250, like, did I only write 250? Like, I don't know, because I really reworked a bunch. So it's a long, complicated thing, and I've never quite figured out a perfect way of tracking edits other than like just tracking time and pages. So I'm hoping to do that in that new happy planner and sort of like tracking the progress just to keep me going, because accountability really helps for me. Making these videos really helps for me because it keeps me motivated. It keeps me thinking of the big picture and moving forward instead of just not seeing the progress, which I am one of those people that needs that little bit of a push, because if it looks like I'm just fiddling with words, I start to feel a little bit maudlin and a little bit hopeless. And I think every writer goes through that sort of like down in the doldrums, kind of, this is not working out or it's not going to become anything. And I think every writer experiences that sort of like dark night of the soul moment when you start to doubt yourself. And sort of keeping quarterly goals, tracking my progress, and making these videos to keep myself accountable and just kind of report back, even if it's just for myself, just helps. It really does. So that's my plan for now. I think that my editing should not take more than 3 months. Usually doing an edit of a draft round usually takes me 2 to 3 months. This will take me into the beginning of the fall semester, which is the most complicated semester. I work as an academic librarian. Fall semester is when we get sort of like peak of classes and also peak of instruction and all the things that I normally have to do at work. So sometimes what that means is that I am drained and exhausted and there is no creativity to be had from me. So I'm going to account for that. Part of using the HB90 method was learning that I do need to have that wiggle room for days when I'm going to get migraines, because they're going to come inevitably. I suffer from chronic illness and eventually the fatigue is going to hit me. I also work in a job that is sometimes mentally draining. It's not physically draining, but it can be mentally draining. I have a lot of meetings. I have a lot of interactions with other people. I am something of an ambivert, leaning towards introvert, so I do need those moments of rest and relaxation and getting away from everything. And sometimes that means that I just can't focus on creative work because I'm just too drained and exhausted to give anymore. And that's okay. And I've learned to come to terms with that. So right now, that means that an edit will probably take me anywhere from 3 to maybe 5 months. I'm aiming for the 3-month mark, hoping that because this novel is not as messy as my previous work, it will not be such a huge ordeal. This will involve, as I said, switching to first person as opposed to third person, just kind of changing up that narrative structure, adding some of the voice. I don't like some of the voices that I originally came up with, so like changing up the voices, changing up characterization, developing the plot, etc. And just kind of reworking that, but at least I don't need to do anything major to the structure, which was a problem with Crown of Ice. It's a work that has needed a lot of structural changes. It's needed a couple of full rewrites, and it's still work that is near and dear to my heart, but it is a mess. At least, I mean, it's not a mess at this stage, but like, as I look over the history of it, it has been a long process to do. And I think having learned those lessons, this work will go but much more smoothly. I know that plotting this work went much more smoothly based on the lessons I learned in not as detailed of a plot with the last one. So hoping that I've grown as a writer and that this will go better, but we'll see. So right now, the code word for this one is the sea story. The other work in progress that I was working on was Red Dragon, which has nothing to do with dragons, but originally it was going to have something to do with magic, and then it became something else, but Red Dragon stuck. I just have like these like working titles that I work with. This one is the sea story. So for the next like foreseeable future, at least the next 3 months, getting through this quarter, I will be working on the sea story, which does involve things about the sea. Unlike Red Dragon, there is an ocean element in this one. So I'll check in with you guys later. If you're working on a novel, working on drafting something, or just like have some tips for the editing process, please drop those down below, because I am always looking to learn more from other people and kind of just gain insight and improve my practice as I go. So I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Novel that I just finished writing, and that one kind of lives in this world. I think the cats are going to the bathroom, and that's why I'm distracted.